Hello everyone, and welcome back to vlog number 7 of House of Chains. So we're continuing on with chapter 18, and we are with Cobolo Dom, and he's speaking with his 11 assassins, and he is talking of the time back with the House of Chains and what they achieved, and that 3 of his assassins were sort of major players, and how they, one in particular, actually managed to assassinate Somo Enath. I obviously forgot that Somo Enath was mentioned in Dead House Gates because my memory is shocking. But clearly they were, and they were assassinated by one of Cobolo Dom's archers. So we know that now. So what we're talking about here is Cobolo Dom is having a conversation with Chemist Rello about how Chemist Rello is scared that there could be some claw mercenaries either presently in the camp or potentially about to infiltrate the camp, who will potentially assassinate Cobolo Dom, Febrile and Chemist himself. But Cobolo Dom's not really that concerned about this. He seems to think that those that they have will be able to handle this situation, and it's not going to be really that big of a deal. So then we're talking about the girl that is in Cobolo Dom's room, and she is out cold with the drink that she's just had. Cobolo Dom makes sure that she has plenty of it so that she's in this state of, you know, you can kind of do anything to her sort of thing. So as Cobolo Dom gets onto his bed, he only has one particular bed in this tent that is for sleeping. The rest are for, make the judgment yourself. So he goes to this bed that is potentially for sleeping, and she then starts to stir. She leaves the tent, but we're getting her in a monologue. I potentially think that she is a spy, potentially a claw. She goes to the latrine, and a girl there who she comes across calls her sister, and Scalara gives her some coins to say get some food. I personally think that this is her direct sister, because she gets called sister, or this is a fellow claw. That's my interpretation of that. Then we're back to Haboric, and he is just having a stroll and comes across 2 of his people, being Felisin and Loric, in Toblakai's kind of shrine area, and he sees the state of Felisin, young Felisin, and clearly knows that Bidethel has managed to get his hands on her. And now Haboric wants blood. But the issue is that if he does this, then he sort of shows himself as what he is now, which is the Distraint for Treach. He reveals himself, and he doesn't want to do that yet. So he decides against it and says it's not the time. He's going to give it some thought, because obviously he doesn't want anybody to see his renewed form. So he leaves that be, he walks away and is sort of skulking in the shadows so nobody can see his renewed form, and he passes a girl singing. And he tries to avoid her, and it seems like he's pulled it off. But then at the very end, it's discovered that the girl turns around to herself and says, "Funny man, do you remember the dark?" Now this is the thing that the shadows were saying when they were talking to Bidethel. Do you remember the dark? So is she one of the shadow elements that Bidethel conjured? That's my question. Is she a real girl? Is she a girl working on behalf of Shadow Throne? Or is she one of the shadows that Bidithel conjured? Not quite sure about that one. Then we've got Leoman and his desert warriors, and they've attacked a Malazan camp. And this is a camp where Maybe is one of the soldiers. And now they want to wait. Sorry, my words didn't quite make sense there. Now they want to wait for Kundril, Seti and Wiccan warriors that are fighting on behalf of the Malazan Empire. So they basically take their positions and lie in wait for them to arrive. Then we have a conversation where Shattuck is talking to Febril. And so from this little conversation between Shattuck and Febril, we gather that the whirlwind actually gathers heat from the sun. So in the dawn or the dusk, you couldn't still penetrate the whirlwind because it would fry you. And she's saying this as kind of a threat, I think, to Febril, to kind of say to him, if you think that the evening is going to be the time for you to escape here or leave here or have something planned for here, all that's going to happen is whoever that may be is going to basically turn to crisp because it contains the heat. And that, my friends, is how we end chapter 18. Quite an interesting chapter, bit of an insight into what's going on in the Shattuck camp and the kind of fight for supremacy between Cobol Dom, between Shattuck, what Bidithel wants, where Hiboric's going to go now. So that's chapter 18. Chapter 19. So first we're talking about Grub. The headers to the chapters, the poems, the insights into people's journals. So we have one of those at generally every chapter. In this one, it talks about Grub. I still think that Grub is Coltane reborn. I still have this feeling that that's who that is. Yeah, I still think that's who that is. I still think Grub is Coltane reborn. I think somewhere along the series, that's potentially what we're going to find out. So anyway, moving on to the actual chapter. So we start off in the midst of the battle, after the remnants of this little battle between Leoman, Desert Warriors, and the Malazans, and the Adjunct and her militia have come across 300 dead Seti and over 100 dead horses, and they've been attacked, obviously, by Leoman's Desert Warriors. And this continues with the Adjunct and Gamut. This continues on. So we've got the Adjunct and Gamut. They have a conversation. Then we go to Fiddler and his boys. And Fiddler and his boys, presumably to distract from the wait or to have just a little bit of fun, just to sort of boys being boys really and having a few wagers, gambling, they find scorpions, and each different clan gets a scorpion. Who wants to be involved gets a scorpion. And Fiddler's scorpion is called the Joyful Union. His scorpion is called. They all name them. Now, one I was a little bit curious about was Gessler's scorpion and what he names that. He names it Clawmaster. Is that a reference to Topper, who is Clawmaster? So, am I just reaching here, or potentially is Gessler and Stormet and Truth? Are they maybe to do with the claw? I don't know, but it was just could be something or nothing. I just spotted that this scorpion they've got they've decided to call it Clawmaster, and I found that a little bit. Oh, well, we have a Clawmaster. Is there a reason behind that? I think there's a reason behind everything. You get that way with Malazan. I think you start to look into it quite deep, and there must be a reason for this, and there must be a reason for that. So maybe there's nothing in that, and it's just a name. But I just wondered if there was a tie, and maybe they were Claw, and that's why they've called it Clawmaster. So what they're intending to do is like a battle royale of scorpions. But Fiddler seems to have this kind of smirkiness about him, where he knows something they don't know. Yeah, he kind of does. So yeah, this is what they've done. They've all picked a scorpion. They're all different types. And the later that evening, they're going to allow the scorpions to fight, having gambled, and see who comes out the winner. What Gamut and the adjunct Tavore have spoke about is doing an old-fashioned militia hit. So it's one that Tavore is familiar with from history. Gamut, as soon as she mentions it, is familiar with it as well, about sending the Marines in on a night mission. So they decide to use some veteran soldiers, some veteran Marines, Fiddler being one of them, Cutler being another, and they are going to go out that night and hit Leoman's army of the Desert Warriors. So there's a whole offensive happening now between Leoman's crew and Gamut's crew with Fiddler. And Fiddler's lot have been quite smart, and they've decided to sort of bury themselves in the sand, and they do have some of the Desert Warriors walking over them as if they're not there. Or at least I think it's the Desert Warriors. I don't think it's their own guys. I think it's the Desert Warriors. So they are literally walking on them. Fiddler describes feeling one walk on his back for them to be able to attack from behind. And that's exactly what happens. So it's all going off. And then we've got Korab, who is like the second in command, if you like, to Leoman. And he has done a lot of the attacking. And he's about to attack again when, because there's bombs going off now. When we're talking about Fiddler and that kind of crew, there's a lot of munitions going off. And Korab is about to get up and attack, but as he gets up and goes, he runs bang into this huge Marine, and he gets knocked back. I've put knocked on his ass, which is basically what happens. His nose is kind of bust, and he kind of closes his eyes, obviously, at the shock of falling back. And this particular Marine throws a bomb on his lap, and as he comes round a bit from his fall, he notices that he's got this bomb on his lap. So he sort of wiggles away from it, grabs a helmet, covers it with a helmet. The rest are kind of hoping and praying that it's going to do what they want it to do. And somehow, him doing this, yes, he gets blown sky high, landing back down, but he manages to get up and walk away from it. So obviously they're a bit disappointed that they didn't manage to do this, but what they are happy about is that they seem to have made the point that they're not that simple to just run through. You know, there's more to them than what they may think. I mean, they should know this anyway because of the chain of dogs and the fight that they put up there. So there's more to them, and that's the point that they're making, that their strategy can't be preempted by Shattuck or Cobble or Dom. They will go to, if necessary, old tactics, old techniques, bring them into play and use them. Unfortunately, though, Gamut kind of loses it a little bit and goes storming towards the enemy. His guys are then shouting at him to stop, and they see the attackers coming for him, and it's clear that he's potentially going to be outnumbered. So they throw a bomb into the attackers, which it has an effect on Gamut, meaning his horse, then him and his horse fall, the horse falls on him, creates quite a lot of damage. So he's now kind of out of action, but he's somewhat happy about that because he's come out of retirement, and now he's kind of thinking in these moments of, you know, some of these boys are too young and they need to be sent home to the mums, and I need to tell Tavore when I get back that this needs to be the situation. And Tavore then looks at him in the hospital bed or the cot as he's being healed, sort of rapidly healed by the healer, which is obviously painful. And he's saying, you know, I'm kind of too old for this. I don't have it in me anymore. I've kind of lost it. You need to put somebody else in my place, which they have a conversation about, and she chooses Kenneb, the one who adopted Grub. She's going to put Kenneb in his place. So yeah, that's pretty much how chapter 19 ends, other than Leoman gives Korab an order to find some messengers to send back to Shattuck to let her know that these tactics that Carbolo Dom has come up with aren't necessarily going to work, like I said, because, you know, the way that Tavore is going to go about things isn't necessarily as cut and dry as they think it is. They think they maybe have her sussed, and it's looking like they potentially don't, and that she will throw this spanner in the works of things from when she was a child, you know, working with the soldiers and going over old battles and seeing for herself if she could work out a different strategy of how to win. It seems like she's tapping into that to be where she is today. So she does seem like quite a force. So then we're on to chapter 20. We're with Cotillion, and he is at the boats of the Ajor, the ships that have just pulled up to where the throne is, the Shadow Throne. They've fought against them. Cotillion has basically taken all of them out. What I didn't realise, and I missed, and it is explained in this, is that Blind, when Cutter called for Blind, he actually didn't attack because these are part of who he used to be kind of with. The Teesta Jaw and those kind of people were who Blind was with prior, so he kind of backed off. He retreated a little bit, and Cotillion does give him a look over that. So Cotillion has now got this can his dogs be trusted kind of feel. So anyway, that's the situation. We've also got Aspelart and Cutter there, and this boat obviously is littered with bodies. If Cotillion hasn't killed them, then the Malazans and the Traveller have killed them. So Aspelart and Cutter see Traveller near this boat. He's talking to a bunch of people, some Malazans, some not, and they believe that their intentions are to get on this Ajor boat. The concern is then that they're obviously going to leave the throne unguarded, but Aspelart tells Cutter that, well, Cotillion has his demon shadows here, so it should be okay. One question that I do have is, should I have known that Calanved claimed the throne of the Tilanimas? Should I have known that sooner? Is that another bit of information that I've missed? Because this is mentioned that when Calanved was emperor, he claimed the Tilanimas throne, and up until his ascension, he still was the one who had the throne. Now it's up for grabs. So did I miss that? Maybe I should have known that. I'm not sure. Makes sense because it has to be immortal. So now in his ascended form, he can't, have that throne anymore. So, makes sense. It also goes on to say that Calanved has no interest in being emperor of the Tilanimas, except to keep these two thrones hidden. One the Tilanimas throne and the other Shadow throne, to keep them hidden. Now at this point in the chapter, it does go on to talk more about this, but at this point in the chapter, I've put interesting, because to me it seems like Calanved and Dancer potentially came up with this whole scheme of this plan. Maybe they knew what was going to happen, maybe through the cards or maybe through a seer. They've been forewarned of this war, and it wasn't necessarily an assassination from Surla, who is now Empress Lysine. Potentially this is all a setup, and Calanved and Dancer, maybe they were assassinated by Surla, but maybe they pushed her to that. Maybe they forced her into that position because they knew that they would ascend on death, which they did. So in doing so, that gave them the opportunity to seek out more thrones. That is then mentioned in this chapter, and I find this really interesting. This is a mystery that I want to solve because I find this very interesting. So that's where my thought process has gone. And what is the purpose? Do they want to potentially gain other thrones, or thrones that are like Shadow Throne, where they found the house and they claimed it? Do they want to find more of those particular thrones? Because we do know that houses have been created within the deck that are no longer in the deck, but they must still exist. So are Calanved and Dancer, i.e. Shadow Throne and Cotillion, have they found these other houses with thrones, Or are they still in the process of looking for them to claim them as their own? But then again, they can't, because doesn't it have to be a mortal who claims the thrones? Or is there certain throne? No, there'll be certain thrones where it has to be a god, surely, or someone of ascension. It's very interesting. This part in particular has piqued my interest quite a lot. This is very interesting to me, this particular part. So those are my thought process. And what is it for? Is it just purely, I mean, what is the power for? What's it to do? Is it just purely to have power for their own benefit? Or is it to get the throne back of Malazan? Although that doesn't make sense because they're ascended now. Or is it to help with the war, the Malazan war? Because regardless of what's happened, maybe the entirety of their sort of, I can't think of the word, thought process, what they've wanted to do this entire time is just save Malazan and just sort of rule everywhere, have everything under Malazan rule. Maybe that's been their thought process the whole time. So is it to do with that? Or is there a much bigger picture that I'm not seeing just yet? Is there a much bigger picture? This is really, really interesting to me. This one particular section is so interesting to me. So I want to know more about this. But this ties in with this next part. So we've got Onrak, and he is with Trull, as we know. Sorry, Trull, not Krull. Onrak is with Trull, and he believes that the Tilanimas, i.e. Monarch Olchem and Ibragolem, amongst some others, may well be in pursuit of their own throne, i.e. the Tilanimas throne, to claim it back possibly for their new Bonecaster. The Bonecaster called them, we know this. This was Silver Fox who called them. But when the conversation happens, because Onrak tells Trull, we need to wait for Monarch so I can speak to him and give him this information, as long as he doesn't kill me, kind of thing. So he tells Monarch this information, asks him does he know who this potential Bonecaster is, and he gives the name of Tenak Ilbe. He thinks it could potentially be this Bonecaster called Tenag Ilbe. Could it be? I mean, we know that the mortal Bonecaster is Silver Fox. So could it be this Tenag Ilbe? Or is it definitely Silver Fox? Again, not sure. Onrak is also being looked at and judged by Monarch because he's repaired his injured arm. And in doing that, he's took the arm off another body. When asked, after he's given this information, and they agree to work in unison with each other to find out who is the Bonecaster and who potentially is after the throne, when asked whose the arm is, he says he found it and the body had basically been cut into half, cleanly with one blow. Well, we know they were in the cave after Toblakai, Karsa, and we know he did what he did to Sibal in one blow. So he must have taken Sibal's arm, which too is Tilanimas. So I suppose that works. He's Tilanimas. That body was Tilanimas, brought back. So I suppose that works. But does that have repercussions? Is that going to have knock-on effects further on in the story? Because it's Sibal's arm. Is that going to influence Onrak at all? You know, I'm just thinking outside the box. Then we get to Pearl and Lestara. We've been missing from them for a while, so it's nice to catch up with them again. And they have found, because they were looking, basically Lestara wanted to prove to Pearl that yes, she did kill Shaik. So we go to where the body is. We find the body, and yes, she's definitely dead. All that is left of her really is this massive dark hair. The rest of it is slowly but surely doing what a body does, decomposing, with sand all in it, etc. So Pearl is now absolutely certain, says to Star, are you sure this is shite? Absolutely, this is shite. Right, so we've got that covered. But they do know that Felasin and Haboric came through this way. So it makes perfect sense to Pearl now that why wouldn't the goddess see Felasin with all her anger towards her sister, and that's the enemy? Why wouldn't she pick Felasin as the new Shaik? Why wouldn't she take that body and put her form in that body? So it seems like Pearl, and explaining to Lestara, has created in his mind the perfect reasoning as to why Felasin is probably the new Shaik. And they need to get this information to Tavor, but it's going to take too long. They can't use warrants, etc. So how they're going to do that, they don't know. But they do kind of need to get this information to her to let her now know that it's not just the goddess, it's your sister that you're fighting. So, yeah, we've got that to look at. Then we get back to Callum. And Callum fears himself having death visions. Because he's actually now within the whirlwind. He thinks he's potentially experiencing death visions. Maybe what is his death or a death to come. But to me, I thought they were more kind of memories or glimpses of the past. That's what I thought Callum's more experiencing. And it's to do with the song. Callum is still hearing the song. I thought that had finished because he got into the whirlwind. But no, he's still hearing the song. And at least he is in this perspective of what he's seeing. So he's still hearing the song. Now he meets the creator, Tano, the guy who wrote the song. And they have a brief conversation. But then Tano starts walking and Callum starts following. And Callum then has to duck for cover because he hears horses. And from off of these horses come 4 desert warriors. And at this moment in time, Callum's not sure whether he's in the right time or not, whether they are Sha'ik's warriors or whether they're warriors from the past. So these 4 desert warriors are on horses, and then a 5th shows up, who is actually a shaman, and he begins a ritual. And from this ritual, these 2 huge beasts show up, and they destroy all the shaman and all the warriors. One is still there nomming on the bones of what they've just destroyed, yet one senses Callum and chases after him. So Callum runs up these flight of stairs, the beast follows. In those few seconds that Callum has time, he whistles for the shadow demons, and 5 Malazan demons show up. 3 attack the beast and 2 flank Callum. But within this sort of moment, Callum runs for it. But what we find out is that the beasts don't win. You know, they kind of go off limping. They have been hurt. But at least it gave Callum the chance to get away. They were there for him to get away. So he's running now away from that. He can still hear it going on, and he's running. We go back to Kutta and Apsalar. They've got on a boat from the Ajor ships. They've managed to find a little boat. They set off, and then next thing we know, they have banged into some sort of wall, and as they speak, they can tell that they're in some sort of enclosure. They're not in the free air anymore, because there's like vibrations, reverberation from the voices, and they've actually got themselves into a chamber, and it seems they've ended back up in the 7 cities. Now the curious, is this the path that Cotillion is sending them on? Is this where he wants them to be? Because they've left the 7 cities, not wanting to go back, and now they've ended up back in the 7 cities. Is this where Cotillion wants them? There's every possibility, because whilst within this chamber, who's there? Iscarol Post. And it seems he's there waiting for them. So he then has a conversation with them. Nothing of any importance, really, I don't think. Just saying how if Cotillion kind of wants you here, then you're here. That's what the deal is. I don't know. Maybe he does. And it seems also that they're possibly at Iscarol Post's home, because he has a conversation about his wife to see if she can find him, because he's constantly hiding from her. So yeah. But what does Cotillion want with them? That's my question at the end of this chapter. What does Cotillion want with Cutter and Apsalar in the Seven Cities with Iscaro Post? I don't know. I don't really think I can think of anything right now, unless it's because he kind of needs the original crew from Gardens of the Moon together for this particular song. That's a possible thought. Or he needs his two favoured assassins together, i.e. Callum and Cutter, who is aka Crocus, and maybe because Iscaro Post got Callum through the whirlwind, he now needs to get both Cutter and Apsalar through the whirlwind. I'm not sure, but I'm sure we'll find out. So, it is gone 3 o'clock, it's nearly 3:15. Obviously I'm going to need to edit if there is anything to be edited and upload this video, so I will stop here. We will begin tomorrow, continuing with chapter 21. I think we're probably going to have till Tuesday of next week. I think that's probably going to be the last video. So yeah, I hope you're enjoying the content. If you are, let me know. Press the like button. If you've watched some of my videos but haven't subscribed as yet, why don't you just press that button? It's one quick doop, and then you subscribe. You can also press the bell, and then you'll be notified every time I upload. And it also helps me. It just makes me feel better about myself. Never mind the algorithms. It makes me feel better about me. Well, yeah, I hope you're enjoying the content. If there's anything you want me to know, put it in the comments, because I always read and reply to the comments. And other than that, have yourselves a great day. It's Friday tomorrow, so last working day of the week tomorrow. So yeah, other than that, I will see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks as always for your support. Till next time. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. We'll link somewhere here another video for you to watch. Bye bye.